there's some things that I did with your program and I was right to the T. Some things I kind of went off the path a little bit just because I had some, like, for instance, the realtor.
Mhm.
I had a really good relationship with a realtor. I've bought and sold several houses with her in the past just because of moving from my job. And so I stretched her thin. I mean, we were looking at, I feel like for me with the W-2 was a lot because I didn't have a lot of time, but we were looking at 5, 6 houses a weekend.
Mhm.
And so we probably walked through 30 houses. And I think with you on the deal analyzer on the Monday calls, I think I went through and I was excited probably about 10 or 15 deals, and you shot, I think, almost every single one of those down. And so
Sorry.
it was one of those, no, it's part of it. It's something that I learned kind of early on in my career is because just my background as project management is don't get emotionally attached to the project. And
Mm.
I think with this business, you kind of have to. I don't know if it's unavoidable. I don't think it's avoidable. But I've just kind of learned to tone that back a little bit and get invested later, emotionally in it. And so just taking a different look after going through so many calls with you on what to look at, and you'd always pull my nightly rate down. You'd pull my occupancy rate down just a little bit. I was a little bit too optimistic, but no, for me, it was a numbers game after that. I didn't really care. I wanted it I knew the area, so I was confident in the area. I was confident in the neighborhoods, and I just wanted it to make sense. So as soon as the numbers made sense, I went after it.
Yeah.
And I didn't get every house. I think I put offers in on probably 5 houses, and so far I've gotten 2. So that's kind of how it worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you describe the numbers on those houses and what they're like?
Sure. Yeah, the first house, and one thing that I kind of did a little bit here, just kind of based on some people locally that are in a short-term rental group, is there's not very many Airbnbs or short-term rentals in general that are large houses.
Mm.
I mean, the market's a little bit saturated on the 2 1s, 1 1s, even the 3 2s. So I went for the big houses. So my first house is a 5 3, just about 3,000 square feet, and I think it was listed for 325. And I ended up offering around 315. I think that's where we ended up. So it's got a large backyard, put in a fire pit. It's got a nice patio, and it's really kind of focused on larger groups. I mean, it'll sleep 12.
Mm-hmm.
And so the regulations kind of differ between what suburb of Tulsa you're going through or what city within Tulsa you're in. And so I kind of had to navigate that, but that's the first house. And the second house is similar. It's a 4 3, about 2,500 square foot, that had a fantastic backyard with a hot tub. And both of these houses have 2-car garages. And that one we landed at right at 275.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're both, I'm going to put the link to both of these in the show notes. So people, if you want to see what they look like now and the listing, I mean, it just turned out phenomenal. You just followed the steps of the program. You did just a great job of designing it and taking professional pictures. And they're both beautiful. And I agree with you. I always tell people like small multi-units where it's like 2-3 units together or a large house tend to outperform the market. And especially in this market, like you said, there's a huge demand for large houses. There's a high occupancy rate in the area. And so looking at these, you paid basically, 315 for the one and then 275 for the other. And looking at your deal analyzer here that I've got pulled up, the first one is $2,500 of net cash flow. And the second one's $2,500 of net cash flow. These are projected, obviously. You're still, getting it all set up and you haven't experienced a full year yet. But that's an extra $60,000 of annual net income coming in to your family now that lasts into perpetuity. And when you look at the cash on cash return on these, which we can talk about your financing here in a second, but you're looking at 24 to 25% cash on cash return, which, most people buying long-term rentals these days are like, oh, 10% cash on cash return is a home run,
Yep.
So it's just, that's really, $5,000 of extra income coming in makes a big difference in most people's finances. And these weren't really expensive properties. So how
Right.
did you go about financing?
So I being a W-2, I did conventional loans. Interest rates weren't great, but obviously the deal analyzer that we work through kind of puts that all into the calculations anyways. But I did a conventional loan, 30-year loan, and was able to get a little bit lower interest rate there than like a DSCR loan. But my process for funding these, I'm not going to recommend this. I mean, do it at your own risk. It might make sense for you. It might not. But for me, I am pulling out of my IRA to invest in these houses, and it kind of makes sense with my situation, especially with being able to use the losses and doing a cost segregation analysis and everything to offset those taxes I have to pay from pulling that stuff out of my IRA early. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
Interesting. That's I
Yeah.
didn't realize that. So that's the down payment is the from your IRA.
Yeah. And then
Got
not
it.
only that, like down payment and furnishing for a lot of
Okay.
the furnishing. Yeah.
And was that a Roth IRA or traditional?
It was a traditional IRA.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
So you do have to pay the taxes on it, but you can pull out your principal that you contributed without any penalty, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So that's, I mean, everyone's got to do that analysis for themselves, but if it can, the whole point of the IRA is to provide you financial freedom at some point, like way down the road. But if you can get that financial freedom today and you
Right.
start calculating what that cash flow looks like, the appreciation, the tax benefit, sometimes that
Yeah.
return is much smarter if you buy the right property to
Yeah.
invest it today and get something that you can actually realize those gains as opposed to being locked away until you're 59
Yeah.
and a half. So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
everybody's got their own philosophy. And I feel like when you talk retirement, it gets pretty deep rooted pretty quick. People
Yeah.
are pretty passionate about it. But
Yeah.
I've done a lot of research on it, and income tax wasn't even a thing until like I think 1913, somewhere around there. Like it's relatively recent as far as like the history of the country is concerned. And then, IRAs, 401ks, they came about from the government in a way to kind of help you offset some of those income taxes. And so for me, looking at it, it's like if government created the tax and then they create a vehicle to help you offset the tax, like how much can you trust that vehicle in the end? And so I just know that, the whole theory, it's never made sense to me. I've sat in front of a lot of wealth advisors, and they're saying, yeah, max out your 401k, your IRAs, and that might make sense for some people, but that's with the assumption that you're going to be in a smaller tax bracket than you are now.
Mm.
Number one. And number two, that the taxes are going to at least be the same then as they are now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, number one, it doesn't make sense. Personally, I don't want to be in the same tax bracket then as I am now. I want to make more money.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then I also don't trust that we'll probably not raise taxes in the next 30 years either. So
Right.
for me, it was kind of a no-brainer. But I know
Yeah.
that's a tough subject for a lot of people.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. Some people are like, I'm going to die on the hill for this strategy that I'm
Sure.
wed to. But to me, the other aspect too is just that like I talked about, the other assumption is that you're going to work your job that you're stuck in until you're at least 59 and a half when you can start
Exactly.
drawing on it. A lot of people at 65. So, what if you want to be financially free today? If you could use those funds to create cash flow in your life every single month, as opposed to just hoping that they grow to some large sum that you can live off of, that cash flow exists even in the retirement. So you get it today and you get it at 65 until you're dead, and then your heirs get it. And so it just made more sense to me to build streams of income as opposed to locking it away into an investment that you're hoping is going to be worth a lot more down the road. So, that's
Absolutely.
I appreciate you sharing that. So you could use conventional financing, qualify for it with your W-2s, get a great rate. Looks like you got 7.1 on the first one here. And then 7.38 on the next one. And then since then, rates have dropped. So for people looking to, do a conventional loan to finance them, it's 25% down. And now I think it's in the sixes for
Yeah.
investment loan. But I'm curious. I want to go through some of the things that you feel like went right, or went really well. And then I want to talk about some of the things that were a challenge for you, because there's always challenges and lessons learned along the way. So what were some of the things that, stood out as like going really well throughout this process or according to your plan?
Sure. Yeah. According to my plan is, I'll put air quotes on that because some of it's luck. I mean, some of it just
Yeah.
kind of happened to happen. And one of those is my staff. I had to go through a few different cleaners through interviews, but also even just hiring, and then just kind of changing gears and going with somebody else until I found somebody that made sense and kind of understood what I'm looking for. Because one thing I like about Tulsa is it's not the destination place. Like people here know about short-term rentals, but it's not a foundation of the community, so to speak, like some of the Florida locations and stuff like
Sure.
that. So um, when I would be interviewing cleaners, they're like, "Yeah, when I need I need 48 hours notice from when you tell me the cleaning needs to happen to when the cleaning is going to get done." And I'm like, "Well, that doesn't work for me.
Hmm.
Like, I need the cleaning done the day they leave." And so it's kind of I was able to find a really good cleaner that we had a really good relationship where now I didn't try to push it everything on them immediately. Where like, hey, I want to scale, I want to build, I want this. I just kind of let it happen organically, and it's really like she's taking control, and like now she's stocking. And as we open up the second house, her mom's cleaned for 35 years, so now she's cleaning that one, and she's training her daughter to clean, and they have their cousins on board if we ever do a third or a fourth house, and so that's worked out really well for me. I've always kind of had it in the back of my head, but a lot of that was just kind of luck. Like it just really worked out with her, and she's wanting more out of it too. Like she wants to do the stocking and the managing, and obviously I paid her for that, so she's making more money. Her family's making more money, and it's just really working out. So I was very thankful for that part.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. And that's cleaners, I think, are probably the most integral part of the process.
Absolutely.
And we had the same thing. We made mistakes in the beginning, hiring cleaning companies as opposed to hiring individual like you're describing. And so, but I like to your point, you mentioned some things were just luck, but I think a lot of luck comes from taking action and moving forward. And so then
Yeah.
things, nothing just like shows up when you're sitting on the couch and doing nothing.
Sure.
So these opportunities and things that go right happen as a result of just like taking steps that are sometimes unknown, but moving forward with it.
Right.
So I love that.
Yeah.
How about on the flip side? What stands out as more challenging than you initially assumed?
Oh man, neighbors. Neighbors are I don't think I just it wasn't in my mind that
Mm,
they could be an issue. And as far as like it might be more locational for me because with Broken Arrow specifically, to get your short-term rental license, you have to send a letter to every abutting neighbor telling them your plans for the property.
mm,
And man, especially in these, I get it to a point, but especially in these quiet, older neighborhoods, they do not like the idea of it, and there's a stigma um,
hmm.
with it. And so, man, we had one neighbor who put up signs in their front yard saying "No STRs here."
Jeez.
It's just part, and we went and met with the neighbors, which was difficult. We've brought them flowers, we've sent them letters, and my wife helps out a lot with that because she's more of the face of the business than me, luckily. Um, but man, it just some of that. I think that's the most stress from all of this that I've had was because of the neighbors.
Interesting.
Yeah, they've called the
Wow.
city. We've had to go meet with the city. In the end, it's fine. I mean, as far as where we're at, it doesn't go to city council, so that I can't lose my license unless I'm breaking the law.
Mm,
But they can make your life kind of difficult,
yeah.
and so we're trying to work through that. And I think over time, it kind of just the initial emotion of it all. Oh, I'm going to have an Airbnb next to me. It's going to be parties all the time. Well, specifically with the houses that I have, they're larger houses. We're framing them more for like either groups of workers or families, and also with a higher nightly rate. And I do a 2 night minimum. It really discourages that kind of party group, and we haven't had any thus far. And so I think they're starting to realize, but man, that initial surge is just pretty tough to get through.
Yeah. Do you screen for previous reviews from your
Yes.
guests as well? Yeah.
Yes, we have not turned on Instabook for either of ours for that
Wow.
reason.
Okay.
Yeah, we might, but still trying to fill things out. I'm 6 months in on the first one and about a month in on the second one right now.
Yeah. So the status of the neighbors right now is pretty. I mean, it's okay. Like it's acceptable. Like your guests are able to stay there without having problems or anything like that.
Yeah, it's okay. We've had 2 issues come up where they've called the cops on us twice on our first one. And it was because both of them were groups of motorcycle groups. They have a motorcycle rally in Tulsa, and I mean, things book up fast, which is fantastic. Yeah. And they're like some of the nicest people I've ever dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
One of them parked their trailer kind of almost in front of one of the driveways, so they called the cops on that. And another one is an older lady called the cops because she didn't like how they were parking their bikes on the street, which is perfectly legal. And I called them and apologized and like, hey, we get this everywhere. It's not a big deal. So luckily, we still got a 5-star review, luckily. Yeah. But yeah, that's the only kind of issues we've had thus far.
Yeah, that's interesting. That whole policy, it's rare that you run into that where a city requires you to mail all the neighbors and let them know the plan. And I think the challenge is that you can't educate someone with a letter. And so their education comes from CNN stories of some house being rock starred by a big party. Right. And so that's what they envision when they see, oh, there's going to be a short-term rental next door. So I can imagine how difficult that becomes then, because now it's like on their radar as this is on their agenda and they have nothing better to do than try to sour this short-term rental. But not having had to do that myself in the past, I can tell you, like, neighbors generally, I've never had an issue with the neighbors. We have one in Florida actually where the pool butts up to a rental, long-term rental, and that renter is a difficult person, to say the least. And so they will, I think they're just angry that we have a pool that people are enjoying and they don't have a pool, maybe. But so we get messages from her, but other than that, in the 39 that we have, because we're not having to reach out to the neighbors, it's just like they wouldn't even know it's a short-term rental. It's just a really well-maintained home. But we'll talk to the neighbors and tell them, that this is going to be either a short-term or mid-term rental. Generally we don't say like Airbnb. We say, we're going to be renting to work groups or traveling nurses and stuff like that, just to kind of make people feel a little more confident with it and not like think it's going to be a party. But that's really interesting.
That's been the only tough one. I think the one that I knew was going to happen, as far as like the difficult part of it, is managing this kind of, it's almost like 2 different lives, where I have my W-2 life and then I have this pseudo business, 2 Airbnbs where we're trying to manage. And I'm just a normal guy. I'm not a genius by any means, or, can work 100 hours a week and still be super nice to my family. So trying to manage both of those at the same time, that's been tough. And I think that what I'm starting to realize, especially with the first one, is once you get it off the ground, once you get it up and running, once we get the first 15 to 20 reviews under our belt, like things kind of settle down.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. That's when I got the itch to get the second one. And then I'm in the grinder again for another 2.5, 3 months. And so trying to manage all that while still being good at my job, that's been interesting.